Hello! Welcome to the 2021 team previews. This is why I don't do the hosting, because I mess up the date, the year that it is right now. And this is the Chengdu Hunters episode. Long awaited. I can tell you right now, I can give you a little sneak preview. This week is the Chinese franchise week. It's the week where everyone went away and they did their research on the Chinese contenders teams, and we took a moment and we grinded it out, and now we're coming to the table with some fresh information.
Well, part of the excitement with Plat chat, as you know, if you read Reddit comments, is are they going to be researched up or not? Exactly. Are they going to know what they're talking about or not? Yep. We'll see later.
I was told 2 hours ago, so...
All right, you always come prepped with an excuse, though, Jaws. You always come prepped with an excuse.
It's not an excuse if it's just reality.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose that is true. All right.
Whoa.
I did my research though. I've got a few notes written down.
Yeah, I'm actually quite excited about these teams, and by process of exclusion as well, you can see that we're saving the big boys until next week as well. But I wanna run people through some big topics for the Chengdu Hunters here. I wanna talk about why you should be excited for Chengdu in 2021. This is a team that's always been defined by the wacky stuff that they've done in the past. The word wacky is now the word wacky has never been used more in a descriptor of a team than with the Chengdu Hunters. But now they have one of the largest rosters in the entire league, and they have replacements at every position. It seems like they're taking it very seriously. They don't have the same weaknesses that they did before. What are you guys most excited about for 2021 with this team?
Josh, do you want to start off with your small research?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. Considering, oh man, they had their own style, right? Last year, which was kind of, we can't really play much, but we can play Wrecking Ball really well. Let's just try and evolve around this Wrecking Ball pick and let Among just do his thing. And I think kind of repairing some of that is bringing on a lot of extra tanks, a lot of extra supports, a lot of extra everybody, pretty much. I think this is a pretty good look for the Chengdu Hunters, honestly. It does, I think a lot of fans can breathe a sigh of relief, and that, maybe unfortunately we're not going to see Among every single game playing Wrecking Ball, but they're going to perform, I think, pretty well in different metas. I don't think Wrecking Ball is that good right now. There's more rush than anything else. So maybe if they do go for a little bit of dive, they can swap out the Winston for Among on the ball. But I mean, they've picked up a couple of nice players from Team CC who have just consistently been the best team in China for a long time in contenders in tier 2. And I think they've got a lot of upcoming talent that a fair few people should be pretty excited about. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're picking up people like Gaga, Farway, you're going to be expecting big things. And I think under this kind of leadership and the experience from people like Lee, Late Young, Yveltal, Among, and whatnot, and Jinmu, I think very, very good look for the Hunters as a whole.
What do you think?
Yeah.
John?
I mean, if you wanted me to give you the off-season headline, just like an extreme headline, over-exaggerated, something to bring the clicks in.
That's what I want.
It would be that, Then it would be something in the style of, what if the Chengdu Hunters built a complete Chinese super team? We're not quite there yet, okay? That's the extreme version, okay? Because the reality is, okay, there's a couple of players left in Chinese contenders that they could have picked up. There's some questionable choices on the roster. Who knows if they're right or wrong? But for example, Super Rich is not on this roster, who was very much praised in Chinese contenders.
Yeah.
People really like Dia as the hit scan DPS from Chinese contenders. Gu Shui is still on the Hangzhou Spark. So there's a few, asterisks to the roster. But for the most part, they've picked up really good players. Most of them the best in the region for their roles. And they're finally trying to complete this team and move away from the Among Wrecking Ball show and Jinmu just flying off the rafters with Hanzo and trying to hit cool shots, okay? With the addition of Gaga, most importantly, you get a main tank that can actually play most heroes, and now you're starting to resembling something of a complete team that can compete with some of the best in APAC.
Before I get into the roster and before we really dig deep into that, do you think there's a risk that they lose their identity? Because for years, Chengdu has been the team, for 2 years now, they've been the team that is, if you are a fan of chaos, if you're a fan of cool stuff, if you want a team that, all right, they're not going to deliver you the wins, but you like pandas, and you like wrecking ball, and you like flashy
Chaotic
plays.
good.
Yeah, that's what your team was. But in their attempt to assemble what you would call like an attempt at a Chinese super team here, they're probably going to move away from that.
Yeah, but that playstyle has its limitations. No, if they had stuck to that, no one would have predicted them to be top 4 APAC. Hangzhou Spark would have been better. Seoul Dynasty people would have thought higher off. Shanghai Dragons, maybe even New York Excelsior. I mean, there's some good Philadelphia Fusion. There's some good freaking teams in APAC. And so that style had its limitations. And like with all memes, okay? Memes die. The hype dies down, okay? Dogecoin is not going to hit all-time high after all-time high, okay? Because
Ricardo's still popular, right?
Ricardo Flake. Maybe. That's a meme that has cycles, It keeps reoccurring because it's so good, okay? It's going to become nostalgia at some point. Chengdu Hunters, maybe we'll have Among nostalgia at some point, but the meme started to die down, and I think this was the perfect season to try to move away from that, and especially in the fashion they did. Yes, it would have been concerning if they moved away from that and then didn't actually made the best pickups possible. But for the most part, they made some really good pickups that makes the case maybe it was about time you guys moved away from that Among and Jinmu favorite style.
Okay, so that's what I want to focus on then, because Amon and Jinmu are still on this team, but I feel like especially Amon defined this roster within the Overwatch League. Their previous attempts at getting well-rounded main tanks failed. I mean, who did they even have? They had Aiting. They had
Aiting.
Who was the? Fuck, I can't remember who the other guys were now. They had.
We're not researched.
I can't remember the name of them because they barely played at all. Who was the guy that swam across the ocean for them and barely played?
I thought that was Aiting. Was it not?
Aiting, right?
No.
I'm looking at their 2019.
Yeah, but there was someone in 2018 as well.
Jichirin is who you're thinking of.
Jichirin.
Oh,
Jichirin.
yeah.
That's who I was thinking of as well, because these guys were supposed to be the like double act with Amon, where Amon would come in and Amon would play the ball or the Orisa for them, and then Jichirin or Aiting would play the Reinhardt and the Winston, and that never worked. It literally, that system did not function at any point correctly. Aiting ended up, Amon had to end up picking up the Reinhardt. I mean, there was that famous game where they played against the Vancouver Titans and he went totally bumper.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it wasn't the strongest main tank for him. And then he even, last season, played a little bit of Winston, despite the fact he hadn't played Winston before that in his entire Overwatch career as a main tank. I mean, this guy is an outlier of all outliers. So what I want to start with here is the discussion around their main tank. Amon is still on the roster, but Gaga has come in. Who do you expect to see have the most playtime, and who the hell plays Wrecking Ball for this team if they do have to play it at some point? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think Gaga will get most of the playing time, and especially hearing what most of the people who follow Chinese contenders religiously has to say. Gaga is complete. He can play most of the heroes, right, at a very high level. So he can cover your Reinhardt, Winston, Orisa, and all that. But he also has a really good ball. And so that becomes the big question, as you just mentioned. Okay, well, who's going to play Wrecking Ball? I think we're at this point now where if you have really high ambitions, if you're the Chengdu Hunters, you can put in Gaga in ball metas and still think that you're doing the best decision for the team long term and short term. And so that's going to hinder some of the playtime that we'll see Amon get within this league. So I know that you've also really studied up on some of these players, Sideshow, but I would say that given Gaga's resume, you would have him play pretty much all the main tank heroes.
Yeah,
I kind of disagree.
What's your thoughts?
I think having Among as a specialist on the wrecking ball, it will be way more beneficial than having Gaga stretched so thin across every single tank.
My thought process with it is that Gaga's best main tank was his ball. So that changes the dynamic quite a lot as well. Where it's like, if you're going to have Eamon specialize, here's the other thing as well. I feel like some context needs to be set here. Eamon was the best ball in the league when no one was playing ball. Like, none of the other main tanks in the league had put significant time into learning ball properly. The second best ball was like Rio, maybe?
Dude, people were talking about Muma as a really good ball back then.
Yeah, and like Gamsu was pretty good on the ball. But, I mean, the standards were low because ball wasn't really in the meta. We only ever had... I think there was like 2 weeks last season where ball was meta, and Chengdu got a lot of wins off the back of it when people were playing ball Zarya back in 2020. Do you remember that week? People were playing those comps and like
that was during the bans, right? That was the hero bans.
It was one of the hero
rotation
pools.
Weeks.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly what was out to lead to that, but I think that my personal theory is that having watched Contenders recently and like Gauntlet and stuff, that people have played more ball recently, and especially in Contenders because they've actively had a competition to work towards. They've been trying to play team-focused ball and not just ranked ball. And so the level of ball gameplay this year, if it comes into the meta at any point, should be higher than it's ever been by a long way. Like, in theory, the ball gameplay from these guys from Contenders, like Gaga and like, I guess, Hardy as well, who looks pretty proficient on the ball. I always forget who the other rookie main tanks are that are coming into the league this year. But basically anyone who's been playing ball in Contenders recently, while it was the meta, should be better than the other main tanks that have been in the Overwatch League that were picked up initially and signed without any idea of how good they were on ball. Like, those guys are just going to have to... They've been playing it in ranked, sure, but almost all of their ball experience is just going to come from having played it recently in ranked. They haven't been playing it for years and years. It's not something that people have been like hyper-focusing on, and no one other than Eamon had it as a pocket pick. So I almost think that the idea that Eamon is still going to be the best ball this year is one that should be reconsidered. Like, that premise coming into the league that Eamon will be the best ball is probably not going to be true unless Eamon has continued to get better and better, because the league around him should have, to some degree, caught up.
Yeah. I mean, we had a wrecking ball meta very recently, so obviously that means that those people competing in that meta in Contenders are just going to contribute massively from all that scrim time, all the theory crafting, and all that goes with that. That is harder to come by if you're waiting for the Overwatch League to start and you're not in these tournaments and you're not VOD reviewing all of these opponents. Like, that's actually one thing that people forget about sometimes. Yeah, you can scrim and practice all you want, but like, something that you do if you're in a tournament is you actually VOD review your opponents, and then you theory craft like indirectly about how you should play and how you can utilize your heroes, etc. And that's what some of these Contenders players are doing. So like, if you're Team CEC and you're playing Contenders finals and stuff, you're going to be very into maximizing the efficiency of certain metas, and that's where ball players like Gaga is going to push that hero to its limitations, whereas Amon can't really do that. I still think that Amon is a ball specialist, and I think that he loves this hero so much that he's going to be at the forefront of what you are capable of doing on this hero. Sure. But that being said, I think that, as we've seen with so many player turnover in Overwatch in general, generally speaking, if you're early in Overwatch, like 2016, 2017, you develop a mindset, you develop tendencies and everything that goes with it, that then like the younger generation moves away from, and they start incorporating other ways to think about the game, to play the game, etc. And that's what might happen to ball players, in that like the older guard of ball players, they might have one way to approach the hero and play the hero, and then the new guard like comes in with like a new set of habits that is improved because they've learned from all these people, etc. So we might just enter like the second generation of ball players within the next couple of years.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Eamon is sick. Like, I'm not saying that he's bad at ball. I mean, look at his POV here. The guy's getting work done.
I mean, he was getting bopped around a minute ago, bro. If you were looking a few minutes ago when they're on Shrine, okay.
Yeah, he was.
He was just getting absolutely bopped.
Yeah, but I think that the average level in the league should be way higher. And I think that there's an argument to be made that just the synergy with Gaga and the added scrim time of having him in every other meta would maybe lead them to just field Gaga full time, even on the ball.
I could definitely see it.
But honing into Gaga, I think he was, in my opinion, he looked like the second best main tank coming out of contenders this year. From the research that I've done,
after
I
Mag,
feel after Mag, I feel the most confident about Gaga because, like you said, Jonathan, he has the breadth of main tanks at his disposal, but he also has one that he hyper specializes on. It's not the same as Mag. I'd say Mag's hyper specialized on Winston, like more so than his other main tanks. But for Gaga, it's the ball, and that's so cool to me because Chengdu might still keep their quirky streak of trying to force the ball a bit more, but they won't be required to be gimmicky, but they can if they need to. That to me is really cool, and that I think is something that fans should be excited about next year.
Yeah, for sure. I just hope that, they sort of I sort of hope they play a little bit more meta. But I do think that you're right in that, they're really good at ball, and like Jinmu excels as well, like in the chaos, as we talk about so many times. So like they have a lot of components that really excel in that playstyle and do well in that playstyle. But I don't want the Chengdu Hunters to be comfortable in that and just rely on that. So I do hope that we see some more ball from Gaga. But for the most part, like if the meta is rush, can we at least see Gaga on the Reinhardt, for example? And that kind of development for the team. Because I think long term, this team has very high prospects and ambitions. And I think they have the player skill and multiple metas to make it work, whatever it is.
What do you think about the line of thought that because the league evolves every single year, and we didn't discuss it on this, but the Plat chat just gone, but we talked about how because the Overwatch League and players in general just get better and better and better as just the game naturally progresses, the less and less likely a team is going to run this kind of quirky thing that's off meta. Because everybody is getting better, surely you have to stick to the meta more, because if you don't, you're just going to get rolled over because people are just so good at playing that meta, and there's a reason why that comp is currently played the most.
Yeah, I could see that happening, but I think that there might still be space to experiment. Even at the moment, like there's a lot of very recent talk about Rush being potentially the meta at the beginning. But
yes, I think it is. Personally.
But when I watched the NYXL and Guangzhou scrim recently as well, they're still playing a lot of dive on maps that allow dive, like the Monkey and Zarya double bubble dive comps were still prevalent on.
Here's the interesting thing. Just just quick interruption. Actually, I watched Costa's stream the other day, and he compared the ladders and what people were playing. So if you watch top 500, you see what heroes are playing.
Yeah.
Europe and North America, most of it just like Reinhardt for the most part. Just Reinhardt, main tanks doing really well, and then some Zarya. Korea is still a lot of like Wrecking Ball or like Zenyatta in the previous meta. So it's very interesting. You mentioned New York and Guangzhou, of course, but like the two regions have different metas right now.
Definitely.
So
yeah. And I think that will continue throughout the league though as well, because you've separated them into two little bubbles that only interact with each other.
It's one of my favorite things about last year. Unfortunately, we couldn't have all these homestands, but it did create two kind of different metas. I think I compared it last time as well to games like League of Legends, where you have sometimes quite a defined meta between the few regions that they have, especially in somewhere like China, where they always seem to come up with like a really hyper aggressive style of play, and they also then choose the champions that they excel on, or that excel doing that kind of thing. They excel at assassinating things. So like that was unfortunately we don't have sense, but the cool thing about it is that when they eventually do meet in the finals or the playoffs or whatever, there's going to be this clash of metas and these clash of styles. And like Korea and APAC as a region in general have always been a little bit more dive orientated, or like hyper aggro, and like playing the heroes as well that a lot of people are famous for as well. It's like Jonak could play Zen. A lot of people in Q are probably going to want to play Zen. It was like the time when Faker was around, when he was making his Zed super famous. Like everybody was playing Zed because Faker was playing Zed. Like there are these, I think as well to keep in mind, there are, I believe, some small outliers where it might not be fully meta, but if a popular player is playing this hero currently an absolute ton, you're probably going to see that as well in that region that he is most popular in, he or she is most popular in.
Yeah, to answer your question, I think that will move more towards, and like this is like very futuristic and might be a hot take, but I think we'll move more towards like a playbook kind of scenario when it comes to compositions and playstyles, because I've noticed a tendency in professional Overwatch as well that sometimes we'll just run into these like road bumps in a meta where something becomes like a small meta for like 2-3 weeks, where like a good example is how many times we say that Ana is a really bad hero and like just terrible, like can't get the same value as like a Zenyatta can or some of the other flex supports. And then we always run into these like small road bumps where a team makes the Ana work because they're either getting too much value from the biotic grenade or the sleep dart, or you forget the power of nano blade or like nano whatever, right? And I think some of that is from you're forgetting how to play against certain heroes. And so you have to remember like, oh, right, against Ana, we're playing this way. This is how you shut her down with like the Matrix. Or sometimes we'll see some quote unquote meta bumps where people just start playing rush and they're like, hey, we just play the objective and just rush to the objective. And then you have to like, takes 2 weeks to think about like, oh, how did we play against rush? We have to play these kind of heroes and like position this way, because people forget how to play against some metas. And I think as we developed more and more compositions and more playstyles, I think we'll have a bit of a playbook scenario where you'll be like, hey, let's surprise them by just playing like the nanoblade composition, or hey, let's surprise them, pick rush and just rush the objective and we'll catch them off guard. So I still think there's room for some small like off picks to surprise your opponent when they're not ready or have forgot how to play against certain compositions.
Especially when you consider that there are only going to be 4 matches played in each meta this year before the tournaments themselves. That, I think, gives very little time for teams to truly get to the perfect meta. So I think even though if we had the prior season format, or even season 1 format would be even better for this, or season 2 format too. But in seasons 3 and 4, as we've introduced hero pools, and now in season 4 where we've got such a reduced number of matches being played, I think the opportunity to pull out, like a rush comp or a slightly different composition, or maybe you play what the opposite region is playing and it works within your region for a small amount of time, or it's like even better because people haven't figured out how to play against it. I think there could be opportunities to play a little bit quirkily for Chengdu. And I think the region supports the way that they want to play as well. The APAC region, in my opinion, is much better than the NA region for a team like Chengdu that likes to play more Genji, more dive, more potentially Ball Zarya kind of stuff rather than the rush comps. I think that could probably be beneficial for them. The thing that I wanted to get to eventually, though, talking about the Chengdu Hunters, is their off-tank situation. Because I've, in the past, been a big critic of Chengdu Hunters off-tank, and generally speaking, Chinese off-tanks as well. Because there has seemed to be a big lack of talent within the region for years. I mean, historically, the best Chinese off-tank has probably been Late Young, if you go way back with his success in like Miraculous Youngster, etc. But at an Overwatch League level, Late Young does not cutteth the mustard. And Elsa was the person that got played for the majority of the time in this team as well. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have Elsa as like a top off-tank in the league either. I'm a little lower on Elsa than a lot of people, I think. But even the highest proponents of Elsa don't have them in the same category as, your like wrong and above, if we want to talk about the people who are top 5 in the off-tanks in the Overwatch League. But the pickup of Liga, I am... Oh, sorry. That's for the next...
Hangzhou, yep.
That's for Spark,
confused there for a moment. But I think the discussion around the off-tanks and the fact that they've in fact missed out on Liga could be potentially pivotal for them moving forwards. And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, of how the integration of Gaga is going to work within this system.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the asterisk comes in that I mentioned earlier when it came to my headline about complete Chinese superstar team. Missing out on Liga is big, because I'm on your side actually, where I've not been a big fan of Elsa. I think it actually aided his brand a little bit that sometimes he would flex away from off tank and play some more funny heroes, quote unquote.
I mean, he played the Symmetra for them in season 2. They had some awesome strats where they played Hanamura and he was playing Sim and TPing them around.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I remember him playing like Mei on like Nepal Village or something. I maybe he played even Sombra at some point. So like he was like, quote unquote, the funny, flexible off tank. But in the long run, you need peak performance on the key off-tank heroes. And I think that Elsa is going to be one of the weaker players on this team. Because now, looking at the roster overall, and we'll get to that later, but like looking at the entire roster, this is a roster that has like big ambitions. Like they're capable of great things. And so I think comparing relatively to some of the other players on this roster, I think off-tank could be a bit of a weak spot, and missing out on Liga is pretty big.
What
I think with Rush
difference?
especially is like an in-game kind of perspective. If your Zarya is not good, or like at least not competing with the enemy team Zarya, you're just going to lose. It's actually, if you lose Zarya, it's like losing Bab in especially when it comes to Rush. Your Rhine has to like then permanently hold shield. You can't really do much else to help your Rhine. You might as well just get rolled over as soon as your Zarya dies. Like having a good Zarya in that kind of comp where you need the Rhine to be like soaking a bit of damage so you can charge up, and then being able to soak things as well with those bubbles, you're just going to get bowled over in seconds, because their Zarya is going to just destroy you just through charge, and then being able to protect the rest of his team as well. I think that's going to be a major tipping point, especially in game. I'm very much focused on the in-game aspect at this point, not like looking at the players saying, "Oh, they're bad off tanks" or like bad Zarya players or whatever. But it's worrying to me when a meta does appear to be more Rush favored with Zarya and Ryan. If your off tank is not at the caliber of one of the Krong and above, like you were saying, you're going to be at a massive disadvantage, because at that situation, there's only so much your DPS can do to kind of fend off the enemy tanks, or like maybe going for a wild pick somewhere. I do worry for teams that have weaker off tanks this, at least the start of the season, when I think this meta is going to reign true.
I also think that when you consider some of the dive compositions at the moment have very heavily featured Zaryas, it brings a large question mark up for the Chengdu Hunters as to who they even field, because Late Young has historically been the Zarya player for the team. Like he is an off tank that is known for his Zarya, which is weird actually in the history of off tanks. That's not a normal thing since like 2016. Like since Diva has been a thing, and then Sigma, people normally think about off tanks in terms of your strength on both of those. But I don't exactly know whether they're gonna be fielding like Elsa if it comes to Zarya being fielded, or whether they're going to go back to Late Young. I think that's a real question that needs to be answered for this team, and I think that people might underestimate how much impact that'll make to Gaga, because when he was playing under Team CC, he had a phenomenal off-tank partner there ready to support him, and that's now that synergy has been broken up a bit. You could argue the synergy isn't as important when you're playing ball, but I think it's still present, and it's incredibly important with a lot of other tank duos. Yeah,
I mean, Late Young is also a two-way player now. So then the question becomes like, oh, is he going to be your Zarya player? Well, then you'll probably have to promote him. I don't recall the exact rules of how many games you can play now as a two-way player. I think it used to be like 2. Right, because I think Philly ran into some drama there with Elk or something.
I think it was like
but
2 per stage or something. I can't even remember. And then, now there's only 2 games per stage. I don't even know, man. Those rules have always been extremely confusing and not really that useful for the league overall. But
yeah, it's definitely a worrying. It's a worrying point about this Chengdu Hunters team going into the regular season, because as I've mentioned, they have to figure that out now. Like, is Elsa going to play all the off tanks? is that going to be enough? Or do you have to sign Late Young to a full-time contract so you can get some of that Zarya? Are we clinging into Late Young Zarya 3 years later while it's not as proven as it used to be? That's another opinion or question you can post yourself. So I think there are definitely questions about the off-tank position when it comes to Chengdu Hunters. But I don't know. I just hope it goes well because I'm psyched about the roster.
Yeah. Let's take a look at their supports then. Let's go moving on to the supports, because like Jonathan said way back at the beginning of this video, Super Rich is one of the players from Chinese Contenders that got passed over. He's the main support for the for Team CC, who we talked about them winning in China. They didn't just win in China; they won the whole of Gauntlet. Like, they were the best team in Tier 2. That's above all of the Korean Contenders teams.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's the first time
crazy.
That's the first time that's ever happened. People should be so excited about Chinese talent coming into the scene this year. People like Gaga, people like Farway are really awesome talents. And what I'm wondering though is why Super Rich didn't get picked up, and why I believe, Jonathan, can you correct me here? Yveltal is still on a 2-way contract, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he's on a 2-way, and they got Nisha playing the sole main support.
They are just going to have Farway and Nisha then, basically.
No, well, they did pick up someone 2 days ago, I think.
Oh,
well, it's hinted at. It was hinted at them picking up a new flex support. I can't remember his name. It was the second best. I think it was the second best Chinese Contenders flex support. Also really good at Sen and Ana, but plays better BAP, I think, was the rumor than Farway.
I mean,
okay.
Shit, I'm trying to find his name. But they rumored against it. They did one of those who's that Pokemon kind of thing.
Oh, really?
Not properly announced yet. Yeah, sorry. It was on Reddit last night.
I'll try to look it up.
Talk.
That. What, sorry?
Monk. I think it was Monk.
Right, okay. I'm completely unaware of him because I haven't done my research on him because I didn't know he was joining the Overwatch League. So
okay. I think it's a flex support to compete with Farway 1987, but brings a better BAP is the gist I got. Okay, that's not my most well-researched opinion ever. So Reddit people, if you take issue with that opinion, point it out, please upvote it, etc. But I think that's the gist of it. So they're rounding out the support a little bit.
Well, that's interesting because the flex support was not a worry for me in the slightest. I suppose maybe getting a BAP to complement Farway would have been a decent idea because I haven't seen how good that is particularly. I've seen Farway more on the traditional flex support roles, but what I did see from Farway was pretty crap. The guy's really good. And I was actually going to compliment the Farway pickup, considering that the Chengdu Hunters last year had Molly on their roster, who, if Bren was here as well, would be talking about how he's one of the most underrated talents in the league. Because whenever we would cast APAC, Bren would be enamored with how good Molly was. And he seems like a very talented replacement for that role, Farway. My questions, though, were more around running Nisha full-time. Now, Nisha used to have a different alias, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. And has actually been playing
Illusion, Pink Ocean.
Pink Ocean?
I'm just reading Wikipedia, mate. It says alternate IDs, Pink Ocean. Maybe that's his alt account. Illusion.
Okay. Illusion.
Yeah. Illusion is the one that I remember, not Pink Ocean. I don't know where he goes by Pink Ocean.
Might be a Smurf name.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But when I watched...
He retired and then came back and changed his name by the looks of it.
Yeah, when I watched him play previously, I didn't think he looked that great. And so if I was going to consider adding another flex support to the team, another support to the team, it would have been the main support position. Or keep Yveltal, because I thought Yveltal was fucking good. Really good. Especially in the Mercy position that he was playing a lot of. Yveltal has always been good within that role. So... I don't know. It feels like when I look at the tank and the support lines for Chengdu, they have an elite level talent at main tank and flex support, and then a talent that I'm confused about or not as hyped about at the off tank and the main support. So I'm left with the feel that it should be a fantastic team, and yet I can't be sure about it. I can't feel. I don't know. Like I still have my questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think with main support especially, there is some leeway to give where I give like the benefit of the doubt, probably to my doom. I shouldn't do that, but I do think that it's more of like, how do they like fit into your team, all of that good stuff. Not in any way defending the fact that they didn't pick up Super Rich, because I think everyone who's actually studied up on the region and even like read something understands that Super Rich was this like huge talent that deserved to be in the Overwatch League, and everyone loves him. And I do agree with you that Weltal was a really solid main support, one of the better players on Chengdu Hunters dating back last couple of years, right? So we would have liked to see him, and now Nisha is going to be this question mark. But then you have these other main supports being picked up in the league as well, like New York Excelsior. The main support escapes me, but it's from OZ Gaming. Friday got picked up as well. Friday. And like there are some of these main support pickups where we're just like, well, that's odd. Like that doesn't make a ton of sense.
Very true.
So, it's hard to say how big of a downgrade. Is that a massive downgrade, a smaller downgrade? Like we don't really know. But the opinion seems to be that Nisha is not on the level of Super Rich, and it is a big question mark heading into the league for the Chengdu Hunters. So we'll sort of have to see. But I'm citing more of it might be a downgrade, but we don't know to what extent until we actually see it in action.
Well, then it's time to get onto the cracked DPS line, to be honest, because what would Chengdu be if they didn't have cracked DPS involved? Are either of you anime fans?
No.
Not really. I dabble.
I dabble. I have partaken.
Yeah, I've partaken.
Do you have a Crunchyroll subscription, Jaws?
No.
Okay. That's the bar. That's the bar.
Not a true anime fan then, are you? Because apparently Jinmu and Kaneki are like the same thing, but just said in different ways or something. I don't understand because I neither speak Mandarin nor am I an anime fan, but apparently there's like Jinmu and Kaneki are both, I don't know, like the name of a character or something, but that's using different, like maybe one of them's using Romanization and the other is saying the Mandarin.
You're talking about the name.
I don't know.
The name itself of the players.
I don't know.
Don't know.
All right. He's is
the name itself of the players? It's not based on anime. Where have I just got that from?
No. But I'm asking you. You're not talking about the hero pool or playstyle. You're talking about the name of the two players.
I'm talking literally about the name of the players. I thought the name of the players was supposed to be the same in some way. I don't know. Maybe I've got the complete wrong end of the stick, and it was just people talking about their hero pools, because their hero pools are very similar. But I thought there was something to do with like the name being the same, but I was hoping one of you two could shine light on it, and unfortunately you're
I'm not read up on their names. No,
I mean neither am I.
No idea.
Maybe someone will be able to inform us in the comments and tell the other people. If you have any idea what I'm talking about at all, please post a comment, because I'm lost. I'm deep in the sauce right now.
Hit us with the lore.
Here we go.
Oh, Tokyo. Wait, I've seen Tokyo Ghoul.
You are shite.
I don't remember,
do we even have you on the show for, Jaws?
I saw it like 4 years ago.
Is this right?
Where does Jinmu fit into the picture?
Control F Jinmu.
Have I just made up the Jinmu connection?
Maybe you have.
Maybe I have. Maybe he's
Jinmu's not on the page.
I do not know.
Wait, I'll go to Jinmu's Wikipedia page. They know everything.
Yeah. There we go. We'll get some detective work going on. In the meantime,
his ID Jinmu means, it's Chinese letters. It's named after the major character Kaneki Ken of an anime Tokyo Ghoul.
There you go.
Wikipedia knows.
Whoa, that's cool. Okay, there we go. Josh was right.
There we go. So yeah, I guess Jinmu then is the
Romanization.
No, is the Chinese name
I don't know.
for Kaneki Ken. They call it
the first two Chinese letters are the same. Of Kaneki Ken and Jinmu.
I am so ignorant.
This is my detective work.
I'm so unbelievably ignorant. Maybe
that is cool. That is pretty cool.
It is kind of cool, isn't it? Now, the weird thing is as well that they're pretty similar players.
Maybe they're the same person. I don't know. Maybe it was just 2 pictures of him, but it's before and after he had a haircut or something. He's just grabbing double the back.
When I watched some VODs of Kaneki, though, he seems very talented, but he doesn't seem to have the same the fuck you energy that Jinmu exudes at all times, which could be a positive thing for this team, because Jinmu is a very Jinmu player. There's no putting a leash on him. You kind of have to let him go.
I'm going to have to quickly look it up again, but I only managed to get surface level research done on this, but Kaneki hasn't played much. I didn't even spell his name now. Oh, I'm not going to be able to spell it. But from what I saw on over.gg, like his games, like his match history, like he hasn't really played much that much in 2020. He played a few times. He played once in season 1 of 2020 Contenders in China. He played once, 3 times in the NetEase tournament, and then a few more times in. Oh, that is still the same season. It was just in the middle. Okay, so yeah, he didn't really play that much by the looks of it last year. Again, very very surface level research. I didn't get a chance.
Yeah, I don't know whether Over.gg tracks the whole Chinese contender scene accurately though as well.
Okay, that definitely makes sense then. But also because I was thinking and looking at the hero pools, like if they are the same, why would you ever feel him over Jinmu?
But I mean, also you could be totally correct, because when I do research in these players, I don't really look into like the history of them too much, because it tends to be very difficult to get good information about that. I tend to just like look at whatever VODs I can find and try and see if they look any good. So I don't know. Like I don't know how much playtime he got and stuff like that. I wasn't actively following the Chinese contender scene while it was happening live. I'm just looking at the VODs after the fact and trying to spot talent and spot playstyle stuff. So yeah, there will be people out there like the casters that have been doing the Chinese contenders season, who would be able to give a much better understanding. I know that, for example, God, I've forgotten his fucking name now as well. He's a good analyst too. Kenobi was on the Tactical Crouch podcast, and Kenobi is deep in the Chinese scene. I mean,
he's probably the go-to kind of journalist, I suppose.
Well, I think analyst, really, isn't he?
But I wanted to say analyst, but he probably does more than that. Like he covers the scene more than I think most people. So
yeah, so he I'm sure would be able to provide a more accurate breakdown. But I think that Chengdu seem like they've just tried to add pieces to fill playstyle holes as well as finding new talent. And I think that Jinmu was when I think about Jinmu, I think he locks you into a specific style of game, to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
Like he has a lot of talent, but you're playing Jinmu's game if Jinmu is in.
Exactly. And that was the way I was going to describe it as well. Essentially, they're the same player, but Jinmu is Axe body spray. And that's the key difference between the two players.
Axe body spray.
And that's, sometimes it's good to have the Axe body spray kind of play style. And sometimes maybe just like stay back a little bit. So I think it complements nicely. But I'm just a fan in general. Like if you pick up two flex players who have like roughly same play style, and then you also have Leave. But besides the point, I'm just saying, like I think it really shows that you're really investing in this roster and this team, and really trying to make something of it. So I think it's an exciting pickup nonetheless. I think, just speculating, probably see more Jinmu than Kaneki. But I do think that it's a nice player to have on your roster.
Well, we know when
right now.
Kaneki is going to play. He's going to be playing against the Valiant when they do come around. I think it might be like an easy transition to kind of play him against those teams that they think are a little bit weaker. Just the classic. This team equal kind of weak or really bad. We'll field our newer players to get them experience playtime and whatnot on stage. Obviously not on a stage, but playtime in the league, and then they kind of work their way from there. I do like the idea though that they are filling these play style holes as well, rather than just like hero pool related roles. It's like, one of our players can't really play Echo, let's get an Echo player. It's actually they can play Echo. Everybody can play Echo. But this player plays it a certain way. Jinmu obviously a little bit greedier. And you're, like you were saying before, playing Jinmu's game. I like the idea that they've got, maybe a little bit overboard on the massive roster, but I'm all here for it if we get to see a lot of different players rotate in and out and see a different look to Chengdu every time they bring in a different player. I think it's super promising. And as well, super promising for the tier 2 scene in China as well. Because if you look at, there's obviously a ton of players from Korea and China that are playing in the APAC region, all the different kind of leagues. And there is a lot of talent still of lying in wait. And so seeing these massive rosters kind of brings hope almost to some of them that might be sitting back like, oh man, I didn't get my chance. Like, maybe next year, maybe halfway through the season. So it's also pretty good for those regions as a whole as well, I think.
Yeah, it's very interesting, actually. The explosion in Chinese talent for 2021 has led teams like Chengdu and the Hangzhou Spark to pick up enormous rosters this year.
Yeah.
I mean, enormous. Yeah. When most other rosters are slimming down for the online world where you don't need that many people, there's not as much burnout with travel, and you want a cost cut, generally speaking, as well. This is a stark contrast with what Chengdu are up to. And I think they're just trying to buy the most talent as soon as they arise. I want to talk a little bit about Leaf's position on this team too. It's not like he's a new acquisition. We saw him last year, but he seems to fit like this nice middle star player role now that they have Jimmy alongside him as well. So like the acquisition of Jimmy, which I love that they have Jinmu, and then they have Jimmy and Kaneki. Kaneki, who has the same name, and Jimmy, who just, I don't know, sounds like Jinmu when he's feeling casual. It's
just call me Jimmy.
Yeah. So, but I feel like Leave fits that spot that almost somebody like Decay is in for the Washington Justice, where you want Leave in, and you want Leave to play the really powerful heroes in the meta at the moment, and then you want the others to kind of fit in around him. And this 4-player roster of DPS players, to me, is very promising, the rotation of them. Because
it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, you can field Leave on pure hit scan if you want him to. Or you can field Leave on a range of flex DPS stuff if you want to. And you are always probably going to have people that you can fit in around. Like, all right, maybe you don't have like a star tracer player or some kind of specialist like that. And all right, I don't know who's going to be like your lip level Sombra or something to that degree. But for the rest of the powerful hit scan and projectile heroes, you have good fits for pretty much everything you could ask for.
Yeah. And different versions of those fits as well, because they can play in very different ways.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Just brush over Jimmy real quick. The way I guess it was compared to me is it's sort of like a Kaylee kind of player. A similar skill set to Kaylee, who got picked up by Guangzhou Charge as well. So, very reliable, good, up and coming. I got a research document. Didn't it say very good skill, very mechanical skill? Yeah, very mechanically skilled.
Research document. You've been sending out your little proteges to gather.
I have an Excel sheet. I have an Excel sheet with all 20 teams, and I write up all the players and their stories. Believe it or not, sometimes people on Reddit, they don't trust me. This year, I'm studying up. I'm doing my job in the preseason. So we're trying real hard here. But yeah, I mean, the thing is I type all these things about all these players, and Chengdu is one of those teams where it's most of the players have something individually really going for them and makes this team so promising because they're so good for the rest of the region or compared to their counterparts. And even when you have 4 DPS players that are really competent and are good in their own way, it's just so promising, this prospects of this team. So it makes it very hard for me to dislike this Chengdu Hunters team when you have even a 4th DPS like Jimmy or Kaneki that are good at what they can do alone and just complements the rest of the team. So that's sort of why I'm so bullish on this team, because everyone has something going for them and can contribute to the team. So
yeah,
what
do you think the expectations are for this roster? Maybe not in terms of
sorry, expectations. Do you mean what they want to achieve? What do you think like the community sentiment is? What do you think? What are you individually looking out for?
I want both in terms of what you think this roster is capable of, like what your expectations are for them, and what you think they're gunning for. Because to me, this screams that they are taking this season very seriously. This roster and the acquisitions they made say to me that they want to be more than they have been in the past 2 years. They want to be well-rounded. They want to achieve more wins. They want to break out from just being the meme team and be a top team. That to me is what they're going for. Is that what everyone else gets the feeling of?
Yeah, like Amongst Ball, they want to be well-rounded, spherical, making sure they have every base covered.
God, you should have saved that one for a broadcast.
Wow.
That was an absolute banger.
No, we're going to use it again, mate. Don't worry about that.
Spherical. Love to see it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get the same, and I mean, I mentioned it earlier. Even like when you acquire this much depth to your roster, and I mean, I guess a reasonable comparison is like San Francisco Shock. Like San Francisco Shock, they don't need to pick up more players because like they have incredible skill position players already at their roles, but they pick up like a couple of 2-3 players to round out the roster, and like that really screams to me they're investing into like the best possible version of this team. And that's the feeling I get with the Chengdu Hunters. I think if Chengdu Hunters has a really good year here now, they could change their entire brand around from Among, Jinmu, meme team to like the Chinese powerhouse. And I understand that Shanghai Dragons, like we can't sleep on them too much, but when it comes to specifically Chinese players, Chengdu Hunters could be on the forefront of being the go-to franchise for some of these Chinese players. It's not out of the realm of possibility that after this season, maybe Liga is like, hey, I want to join the Chengdu Hunters because they're the Chinese powerhouse.
Yeah.
And that also becomes a great thing, like we've seen with the San Francisco Shock this year. Like if you establish yourself as a really dominant team that takes it seriously, want to compete for the best, contenders players want to join your team. Yes. And you're going to have like a VIP pass to pick up some of the best Chinese contenders players as well. So I think they could snowball if they play their cards right. Chengdu Hunters could snowball into becoming the Chinese powerhouse franchise, which is like the go-to place for Chinese players. And as that region evolves and becomes better, Chengdu Hunters is going to evolve with that entire player skill ceiling. So I'm really excited about the future prospects of this entire franchise.
Yeah, I think it's really important to ride that as the Chinese scene is on the come up right now as well. Like this is the year to invest in it. But they just won contenders, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I think if they achieve anything less than at least third place in the tournaments this year, I think it's pretty disappointing, honestly, considering the depth of their roster.
That's
and
really hard.
Like in the depth of their bench. I know, in a very competitive region, but I have pretty high hopes for them, honestly. If they can make this roster work with multiple iterations and they become this Chinese powerhouse, I think anything less than top 3 is probably going to be pretty disappointing.
I kind of agree with you. I think that their prospects as well. I mean, I don't know. Okay, we'll get to the overall rankings when we do it ourselves, but I think their prospects are top 3. I think if they don't beat a team like Hangzhou or Guangzhou in the standings, they're going to be disappointed. And I actually think that, with the player skill they have on this roster, the inconsistencies of a Seoul Dynasty or a Philadelphia Fusion, I could see them potentially being better than those teams. And then it's like Shanghai Dragons is guaranteed top 2, probably even guaranteed top 1, right? So I think when you look at the entire region, I think the Chengdu Hunters would want to be top 3, and I might place them in the top 3. We'll see later when we do our rankings.
Yeah, that's from their perspective, I think. Like from my perspective, I think that's what they'll be expecting. Their expectations coming into this season. They will be disappointed if they don't get these top 3 placings in the tournaments.
What are you?
I would put them a little bit lower than that, considering the power, and especially if you got as you have teams like Philly now in the APAC region, bro. Like it's going to be so tough, and especially a lot of these players. Yeah, I guess they've just won contenders. Team CC are just a fantastic team to be on the up and coming as an up and coming player, because you're going to get scouted pretty readily, and you best believe you would have tryouts if you're on that team, especially as you won Gauntlet recently. But because these some of these players are so fresh, and you're going to be mixing in lots of different parts, I think at the start of the season is going to be a dip. There's going to be a big lull, especially as you have powerhouse teams and players moving over from the NA region into the APAC region, and already bringing in this pre-baked idea of what they want to do and how they what they want to do, but how they are as a team as well, and they know their identity already. And especially at the start of the season, definitely put them a little bit lower considering Philly and whatnot. I'd probably put them around 5th or something at their full strength, 4th. And if they do end up popping off, maybe they go higher.
Yeah,
I love how high you are on this team, Jonathan. I started out.
I still haven't said top 3. I think it's their ambitions top 3.
Okay.
Who knows?
Fair enough. I mean, we have to wait until our power ranking episode, which will be out
wait and see.
Early April. When I look at this roster, I still have some concerns. Like, I think that there's a lot to be extremely excited about, but when I look at this roster, I'm thinking a little bit like New York, but for totally different reasons. And I know that everyone in the community is mega high right now in New York, but I want to pump the brakes a little bit on that. That's based on Scrimbucks. That might come true, but I think when you look at the New York roster and the Chengdu roster, I think of those as 2-year projects a little bit, where some of the stuff is going to go really, really well, and some of the stuff you're gonna rebuild for the next year. I look at this, a really large roster. You have 11 people on it, and you're hinting that you're going to be signing a 12th. That's an enormous roster. Some of these things are going to work out, but some of them probably are not. When I'm looking at the main support, when I'm looking at the off-tank roles, when I'm looking at the overlapping roles within their DPS that might leave a couple of specialist roles open a little bit, those are the areas that I see them patching up next year around. Like riding this wave of Chinese talent, and truly next year it will be a super team. Like I think they are currently battling right now. I love that you brought this up, Johnny. I think they're currently battling right now with the Hangzhou Spark for the title of the team that Chinese talent wants to go to. Like that is the battle right now. Is do you want to go and join Gushui, or do you want to go and join like a full Chinese team? Are you excited by the prospect of going and joining Gushui and currently Liga and Coldest, or are you trying to join a team where you know you're going to be fielded and you're not going to have excellent Korean players start over you, and you're not going to have to integrate mixed languages, and there aren't those other hurdles for Chinese representation within the Overwatch League? That I think is the big fight in China right now, from the outside looking in, is for the future of the Chinese talent that is probably going to continue developing and probably going to continue to be very good moving forwards in the Tier 2 scene. And I think that this is a bit of a 2-year project. I'm not quite as high as you appear to be on them right now, but I am really excited about them. I'm excited. I don't think they're like there yet with the Chinese super team, but I think they're like 2 pieces away, and I think next year they will be there. But I think the rivalry between them and Hangzhou is alive and well, and those are 2 teams that could be going toe-to-toe all season long and like competing for the top 4 that make APAC tournaments. Yeah. I could see Chengdu making a few of those. Like there's 4 in a season. I could see Chengdu making 2. I think that would be really reasonable. For
sure. I think it's only a matter of time until we see a Chinese, like a team with majority Chinese players or some Chinese players being in a Final 4 kind of scenario when it comes to the Overwatch League playoffs, like the actual playoffs. I think it's a matter of time. Probably not this year, maybe next year. But I think the Chinese scene is doing some incredible player development right now and are really improving from like 2017, like meme tier. So I'm really pumped. I think it's a matter of time, and I think this is a start of like a great Chinese rivalry.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the letter, the arbitrary, silly letter that we're going to apply to all of these teams. Jaws, as the guest, I'm going to give you first dibs on what letter to select. What are you going for here? I will say,
I'm going to do it for...
Oh, go on. No, you go.
No, I want you to say first, Josh.
All right, well, what I was going to say was, you look like you were pausing, deep in thought, really considering 14 million different possible outcomes for the Overwatch League.
There's the amount of players in the roster, I kind of have to.
Running Monte Carlo projections in your head. Custer recently released his Overwatch League 2021 tier list. And likewise, it goes from C... Well, no, he's done his very sillily. He's gone from S+ to C tier, and then he just has Valiant at the very bottom in a failed management tier. So
failed management tier.
Yeah, I can tell you that in his very odd S+ to C, he gave Chengdu an A tier.
An A tier,
which is very high, but when you consider that is actually the middle tier, very weird.
Yeah, well, he's put A is his middle tier, okay? If I had done this, I would have said that
C is middle.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would have put his A teams in B, moved down the S, and then just have Shock and Shanghai as your S teams.
Okay, so
and then like Philly all becomes A.
Yeah, I mean, that's roughly how ours works, right? It goes S to D.
That's it.
Yeah, we have S to D. So what are you thinking? Where are you putting Chengdu?
And then F, right?
No, well, an F for Valiant maybe, yeah, but
yeah.
Well, guys,
I don't want to give my letter in relation to Costa's rankings because his rankings are bad. I haven't inspected his rankings. I haven't read his rankings, but they're probably bad. They're probably bad. I don't know if they're good or not, but they're probably bad.
He derailed our entire rankings last year.
Plat chat letter rankings. I'm giving Jaws a break, giving him more time to consider his different universes.
I just said mine 3 times.
Oh,
I didn't listen.
What was it?
Okay. C for Chengdu, and then plus because they got a ton more players.
You give them a C plus.
Yes.
Not a B, not an A C.
Yeah, because C is the middle. C is the middle, and I'm thinking
C is definitely below the middle. In our arbitrary rankings, if it goes from S to D, then you have S, A, B, D.
And then F.
S, A, B, C, D.
Yeah, but then we got all the pluses and the C minuses and the D minuses. Dude, this ranking system blows. Like, actually sucks. Anyway, C plus.
C plus. All right.
C plus.
What do you think of Jonathan?
I mean, I have S is obviously reserved for like the top teams, right?
Shock and Shanghai.
See, I was going to say A, but in relation to the other picks, B makes more sense. But I also think I put some teams in B that I wouldn't compare them to Chengdu. So I guess like a B plus or an A minus. A minus sounds aggressive, maybe. Let's give them a B plus. I want to give them a B plus.
Not bad. I'm giving this team a solid B tier, and I think that I would be inclined to give them a bit of a. I like the idea of being generous and giving them a B plus, or even feeling confident about giving them a B. But I'm actually leaning more towards the B minus scale because APAC is so competitive. That's the only reason. Is that I think this team has a lot of potential. I think it has some really great talent. I'm very high on Chinese talent this year that's been doing very well in contenders too. Like specifically Farway and Gaga, I think are fantastic additions to this team. But I do think there's still holes in the roster. And, all right, it's difficult to make a team that doesn't have holes in the roster, especially if you're only picking from one nationality, even if it's a massive player base there. But the competitive nature of APAC means that, I mean, can we, actually, Kurt, as the final thing that we do, can we bring up their first 4 games on the schedule, wherever they are? Because I think even though Chengdu are really great, they have a lot of teams that they're going to be really close with. Like, okay, 3 win over the Valiant to start out in week 1. That's going to do you well. But then Shanghai, they'd probably lose. And then I'm not confident predicting them against New York or Philly. I don't know. Like, I really don't know.
I think Philly will wipe the floor. Just going on the fact that new players, new roster, lots of moving parts in it. I think Philly will win that one. But like I said before, I think Chengdu Hunters, once they get rolling, they got a lot of cogs that they placed in the engine. More cogs, faster the car.
All right. Clockmaker Jaws.
Wow. That's probably not even true, but I love it.
Of course,
more
it's not
cogs,
true.
faster car.
How much do you know about cars, Johnny?
How much do you know about cars?
0.
There you go. I think they're gonna split the difference, so I say 2-2 in these 4 matchups.
Yeah, but I think the APAC region is going to be a little unkind to Chengdu, even though they're a good team. So I'm going to give them a B, trending towards B-. But there you go. That's our 2021 team preview for the Chengdu Hunters. You can catch us again on Saturday, and we will be doing a preview of the Hangzhou Spark, who I think are pretty competitive right now over in the APAC region too. So I'm excited to go through those guys. Then you can catch us for a normal edition of Plat Chat again next week on Tuesday. Bye.